Alright guys, so now we're in the corner of the garage here. The furnace is right here and I have it pretty much covered with bigger pieces of wood that were cut off from previous projects. I also got a 2x4 here, a long 8-footer, and another big piece of plywood, which are just, this is kind of just like the crap corner. Just throw everything in here. I'm not really in this corner very often anyway. I do have some more plastic shelving back here. I got an old microwave with a bunch of parts that I couldn't bring myself to throw away, just in case I might use it for something. I got a couple other like toolboxes full of, you know, little odds and ends. I have a belt sander on a little bit of a, like it's, here I'll show you. So this is a belt sander on a little board and it's propped up and locked in there pretty solidly. I got this idea off John Heiss. He did a similar thing with his belt sander. He uses his all the time. I don't use mine very often, but when I do need it, it is coming in very handy. So I will try to find the link to John's, I won't try, I will. I will find the link to John's belt sander build, or at least a video that he uses it, and give him credit for this, because this has been a pretty cool project. So that's over there. I got some wrenches and some other, you know, some files and some other odds and ends. Oh, and here you go, John Heiss again. This is my chisel sharpening jig, which I built using the plans from John Heiss's website, which I will put a link to. I have a spot for my stone right here. I use oil on the stone, and then I use this to sharpen the chisels. I did this and I sharpened them and they're real sharp. I haven't used it since. If I need to sharpen a chisel, I just, you know, take a quick second to do it by hand. But this is really cool, especially when you're first starting out with chisels or planes or anything like that. To sharpen your blades, this is a good thing to have. I'll use this if I, you know, if something happens to a chisel or it's really dull or whatever, then I'll definitely use this again. I hope you can see it in the back, but I have a Ryobi miter saw. It's I don't know, probably 12-inch sliding miter saw. It's really nice. I use that forever, really. I've had it for a long time. Until I got my radial arm saw, I used to use it all the time to obviously cross-cut wood. I use it currently not to cross-cut wood. I have the radial arm saw for that, but I use it to cut miters, or if I need to bevel that the blade, I can do that. I don't really do that very often, but it's good to have. Like I said, I use my radial arm saw for crosscuts mostly, and so I don't use it as often as I used to. I thought about it previously, before I was convinced that the radial arm saw was what I wanted to use for crosscuts. I was going to build a dedicated stand and enclosure and hood for the miter saw because it sprays so much dust. I tried hooking up a shop vac to the back of it to try to contain as much dust as I could when I was using it, but it didn't work really well. It's got that little port that collects a little bit of dust, but it just sprays dust everywhere. So I was going to build something for it. If I didn't have a radial arm saw, or I used it more often, or I had it set up just for miters or whatever, then I might do that. I don't really have a good spot to do that, build a dedicated you know, hood for it, so it's just off in the corner and I kind of forgot about it. Underneath this plywood, by the way, this whole 2x4 kind of built-in bench was existing when I moved in. So this was probably the previous guy's you know, workbench, and it's great to have because I can put all my stuff here up off the floor and have easy access to it. I drilled a hole in the bench, and so I have all these tools, you know, hooked up to power, so I don't have to move something around. In my previous shop, it was like, okay, I need my drill press. Take it out from the corner, set it up on my bench, and plug it in, use it, now put it away. Now I need my bandsaw. These are all just here, they're ready to go, they're plugged in, just flick the switch and it's ready to go. This is a, what is it, a grinder? It's a grinder, it's a bench top grinder. I think I got it from my grandpa. I inherited that from my grandpa. I don't use it too much. I want to get I want to get new wheels for it. I have another bench top grinder that I got in the deal with my table saw and radial arm saw. The guy threw in another bench top grinder, so I said, yeah, sure, I'll take it. I want to get new wheels for it. I use it occasionally when I'm grinding down some piece of metal or whatever, or making a bolt shorter or something, but I don't use it a ton. It's off here in the corner. Underneath that is a router table. I used the router table a lot back when I first started. After I built this workbench, I built like a dartboard cabinet that I routed out slots in and stuff. So I used it. I thought I was going to use it all the time. The router is nice to have. I use that. You saw it on my bag set, rounding over the corners. The router's really big. I want a little trim router that I can kind of hold and control a little bit easier. But the router table is okay. I was planning on building a new router table because the fence is not great and whatever, but I don't use it too much anymore, so I kind of forgot about it. I have some other kind of storage of some other tools. My heater's down there, so that's all kind of just like deep storage. This is my shop vac. I got this a couple months ago, and it's like, I don't know why I waited so long. I mean, obviously you're gonna be creating dust everywhere. Having a shop vac, it's a no-brainer. Just do it if you haven't done it yet. I got a pretty good one. It's a rigid, I don't remember how many gallons, but it's like a 2.5-inch hose. I found this hose behind this garage. There's a big long piece of hose from previous tenants or whoever. And so I cut it up into little sections. I put this adapter that'll fit on the 2.5-inch hose. And so now this will fit on there, and then I can plug the other end into things like my orbital sander, which has been awesome, and my biscuit joiner or things like that. So this has been sweet to have. The shop vac is a must. Even just sweeping up the floor, cleaning up the floor. I have it hooked up to my radial arm saw at times. I'll show you that in a second, but it's good to have. I also have filter bags for it also. Underneath this bench is some wood storage. I broke down a plastic rack in half and put the two halves there, and I just have some storage. Trying to keep it organized. I got a spot for plywood, spot for dimensional lumber, little pieces of dimensional lumber cutoffs. You know, my oak and walnut, nicer pieces of wood over on the other side. So that's all there. This is a disc sander that I built. Haven't used it much, and not super happy with it. The motor that I have, when I try to run this, I'll try to show an up-close picture. Here, let's come on in. Alright guys, so here's my disc sander. I built this. I think John Heiss has a video of him building his. I will find the link to that, and I will make sure I post it in this video. But I built it kind of going off John's idea. I kind of stopped with it. The motor that I have, I found for like $1 or $2 at like a Goodwill or something like that. And the shaft of the motor kind of wiggles in and out, and so it's been really hard to you know, make this disc perfect when it spins. It works. I have some pretty aggressive sandpaper on here, so I can, you know, take off a lot of material at once, but it's not very precise. It's, you know, like I said, this comes in and out. I don't know how to fix it. I took the entire motor apart. I opened the motor up, and there was so much crap in there. I don't know if it was buried under mud or what, but there were like, it looks like a bunch of bugs had died in there. There was a nest of bugs in there, and there was like all this dirt and crap. So I cleaned all that out, and the motor still runs and it's okay, but I couldn't figure out what was going on with the shaft to allow it to go in and out. You know, it's moving in and out maybe 1/8 of an inch, and maybe that's how it's supposed to be. I don't know what the motor was originally intended for, but for a disc sander, it's not ideal because it starts spinning, which will bring this disc out, and so it'll be spinning out, but then when I push my work to it, that shaft wants to go in. So long story short, I haven't really used it much, but I did wire this switch to it. This whole thing just vibrates so much because it's not really balanced perfectly. But like I said, it works okay. The other negative part about it is if you can see underneath, this is just all exposed. So when you do sand even a little bit, this is just entirely full of dust. So I want to enclose this bottom piece and then put a hole for my shop vac to go in, and to try to offer a little bit more sawdust everywhere. Try to offer a little bit more dust collection with this. But if I could find a cheap, good, solid motor, the problem was I was doing a lot of research and it seemed like 1200 or 1800 RPMs is what I wanted for this motor, and it was just hard for me to find. I mean, hard for me to find in that I wanted to spend less than $50 on the motor, you know what I mean? You can go buy a new motor, I'm sure, but I was looking on Craigslist forever and I was obsessed about it, and I couldn't really find something that worked perfectly. So anyway, that's where it is. This is inspiration off John Heiss. As you've seen, a lot of this stuff is inspiration off John Heiss. John Heiss' channel is awesome. If you guys haven't checked it out, I'm going to be linking all this stuff in there, so you need to go check that out right away. But anyway, that's there. I used it was actually an old vacuum cleaner that I dismantled. I used the cord for that, hooked that up to the switch, and then switched to the motor, and that was a pretty cool process for me. I've never done, that kind of wiring, so that was a learning process. Built this box for it, drilled out some exhaust holes, and built this whole base for it. So it was a fun project. It would have been sweet if it worked well. Like I said, I knew it wasn't going to with this motor, having this play in the shaft. If you guys have any ideas on how to fix that or where to get a good motor or any tips, please let me know. The other thing I was going to do is build, like John Heiss did, a little bit of a shroud right here to contain more of that dust, but gave up on it. This is some material that I just used on a window flower box. These are some mirrors from Goodwill that I was going to use the glass from, or not mirrors, but glass. Use the glass from to make my own frames. Never got around to that. This is a basketball hoop that I want to hang up somewhere. The problem is this roof is kind of low and I don't have a good spot for it, so it sits right here. Got some bandsaw blades here, which are decent bandsaw blades, but we'll get to the bandsaw right now in just a second. Before we do that, let me show you this paint board. I don't know what you would call it, but I used to make these candle holders that were made out of 4x4 material, and so I built this for that. There's 4 nails here arranged, close together. I have sets of them, so that I could just put one of these candle holders that I was making on here and stain it or paint it or clear it or do whatever. And so I've been using it ever since. I don't really make those candle holders anymore, but I use this board all the time. It's nice to just set something on all these nails so that it's not flat on a piece of, the bench top or whatever, to keep it up off that, keep the paint up off that, and to allow it to dry. So it's kind of handy. It's kind of a good idea. If you think you might use it, then go ahead. But let's move down this bench, and the next thing is going to be the bandsaw.